Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to another episode of Open for Discussion. I'm your boy, C. Maurice Ball, and y'all know what to do. When y'all see the thing come down here at the bottom, hit that subscribe button, be a part of the community so that you can stay tapped in into the amazing stories that I have coming up. And today, I have a phenomenal young lady that decided to come and pull up. She is out here inspiring, educating, and elevating people and moving them into a greater sense of their purpose and their destiny. And she is focused on having healthy relationships, and she's about that life. And she is a soon to be syndicated national radio show. So I am very, very excited to have her on so we can chop it up with her and get some insight to her amazing life. But before we do that, y'all, we're going to go ahead and kick this intro, and we'll be back. Well. I am introducing to some and presenting to others this amazing young lady right here, Miss Angela Cookie Lewis. How are you today?
I am well. How are you doing?
I am awesome. I am awesome. Well, I always have a story as to how people pulled up on my podcast, and mostly everybody outside of a handful of people came through TikTok or Instagram. I kind of just stalked them, asked them to pull up, and people be like, "Yeah, I'll pull up." So we sat on a panel on TikTok, not too long ago, and I was like digging how her responses and everything that she was saying. So I just kind of dug into her content and was like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this. And we have kind of the same mission as far as inspiring and elevating and educating people. So it was an easy ask and it was an easy receive. She was like, yo, I'm with it. And here we are sitting, getting ready to chop it up about her amazing life. And so that's the story. So where are you currently at right now?
I am here in Atlanta, Georgia. My oldest is here, so I'm looking at transitioning into a different space and place. And so I'm here in Atlanta trying to catch the vibe and see if this is where I need to be. The energy, a new way of thinking, a new energy, a new way of communicating and networking and elevating, going to the next level where God has me to go. So yeah.
Oh, that's what's up. So where would you be coming from? Where's your base at?
My home is in Mississippi. So I'm right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. I've been there for the last 20 years. Was with my company, my former company, automobile company. I won't say their name, but I was there working for them 15 years and, decided to take a step and put some money on myself and say, hey, the time is now to do what you've been called to do.
And betting on yourself is always the best bet. I tell my son all the time, you got to give yourself a chance to win.
Yeah.
You got to give yourself a chance to win, and you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, and you'll never know until you at least try. And even if it's not successful, you then turn that story into a book and you write about how your unsuccessful journey landed you at writing this book that's still going to inspire and encourage people to do what they do. Mississippi.
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 Cricket letter. I'm a Southern Belle. I was born in Arkansas, and so I was raised up north in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So my everything, my beginning comes from the South. I'm an Arkansas baby. So my roots are always back in the South. And once I graduated high school, I came right back home. I couldn't handle the cold weather.
And you went to Mississippi though, like
I'm in Mississippi.
So in your family structure, where do you fall at in your siblings?
I'm the oldest. The
The
oldest of
oldest of how
four.
many? Four?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And boys, girls.
We're the oldest of five. With my dad, I have two brothers and one sister, and my mom is myself and two brothers. So I'm the oldest of five, four boys and one sister. And I'm the second grandchild on both sides, the first on one side and the second on the other, all boys. So my family structure consisted of a lot of boys. My cousins, majority of my cousins are boys. So I grew up around men and boys.
Do it. So was you what would be considered a tomboy, being having nothing but male cousins and brothers around? Did you do boy stuff?
Well, actually, yes and no. Because I was the only girl, I was spoiled rotten, and then, but because I'm around men, around boys, I kind of took on, not that I was a tomboy, but I was a little rough, but I was sweet. So I had a combination of both. I hated wearing dresses. Um, I wasn't into sports because I was too shy to play in front of people, but I love basketball. I love doing, going fishing with my dad. I'm catching, putting the baits on the hook. Like I do all that kind of stuff. So one side of me is very much tomboyish, and then the other side is very girly and, feminine. So I had the best of both worlds.
It's like they say Sour Patch Kids. It's like it's sweet on the inside, but it's sour on the outside. You get the best of both worlds.
Or a tough
So
cookie. She tough on the exterior, but she's sweet on the
she
inside.
oh, there
Soft
we
and
go.
sweet on the inside. So yeah.
So are y'all really close as far as your siblings?
Well, because I'm so much older than them, I was raised with my dad. So once my dad got married, my mom stayed and I went to live with my father. So because I'm that much older than them, when they were three, and four and five, I was already, 11, 12. So it's such
Okay.
a huge age gap. So when
Okay.
I graduated from high school, they were, maybe third grade, second grade. So my daughter, my oldest, and my sister are only 3 years apart.
Okay. Wow.
So, you
Okay.
know, and
Okay.
I left right
So
after high school. So I didn't have time I wasn't there to be raised with them. I left.
okay. So your family structure, being raised with was your dad a single dad initially and he raised you, or was he married and then he raised you?
He was married before they moved to Milwaukee, before our family migrated to the north.
Mhm.
They were married. Him and my stepmom married. So
And what was the dynamic of that? Like being raised by a father, having a father raised you. Um, how important do you believe having that male staple around is into to a young person as they matriculate and grow?
I would tell anyone this, especially fathers, if you have daughters, that validation can only come from her father. The validation that I needed as a woman, the reason why I'm so sure in my power and never was looking and searching for attention from anyone outside of me, was because my father, my grandfather, the men in my life gave me that without requiring anything from me. I didn't have to perform to get a hug. I didn't have to perform to get a kiss. I didn't have to perform to get their one-on-one time. That was given to me freely, openly, joyfully, without me having to ask. So I can tell the difference with
Mm.
women that have been raised by their father, that's been a constant that was in their life, versus the women are not. My daughters, their dad early on was incarcerated. So they didn't get to have him in their life. And guess what? I can see the difference of my children, my daughters, that were raised without their fathers versus myself. There's some things that I can't relate with them on because I didn't have that absence in my life. And I can see moving as they became young women, they were searching for that validation that mama couldn't give them. That only comes from the father. So it made a big difference as to what I was wanting in a relationship. The type of man that I was looking for was solid because I had that in my upbringing. I didn't have a man that was in and out. My father was never in and out. I didn't see him abusive. He wasn't doing anything to my stepmom. He was a stand-up and still is a stand-up Christian man. And so that the only part of that is it was very difficult, and even now, to find someone similar to him.
You just said, just on that piece alone, we could run this conversation off of that piece alone. That is some very, very good insight, and it's the same as a father and son. So I was raised by a single dad in the 80s,
Mhm.
and my take on manhood and being consistent and all this stuff I learned from a solid father. Right, I'll tell everybody right now that I am an amazing dad. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a high 9. I'm a 9 and some change. The problem was he wasn't a husband. So my husband is probably about a 6.5, 6.7. So I learned how to be and got validated and affirmed all the stuff that you just said from my father, but it was still some pieces that I didn't learn from him that I'm still learning how to do now. But that is amazing. So you're in this house and you have your dad and your stepmom, and you're older, and so you have these brothers that come along. What was that transition like, going from the baby and the only to now you got siblings?
Um, I, I, I think it's just innate in me that I'm a loner. And so I didn't have a problem entertaining myself. That's when I discovered my natural ability to draw. That was the thing that I did because I had so much time and entertaining myself. Um, the dynamics of my relationship with my stepmom wasn't so great. Um, at this time, my mother wasn't involved in my life at all, or my family in Arkansas. So I wasn't able to readily be around them because that was the family dynamic. The grandparents, my mother had me at 15, which means she was pregnant at 14.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to think about that. I was the product of a child, teenage
Right.
pregnancy. And so I love the dynamics that I was raising my grandparents. I had my uncles there. We had cousins. We all lived in the same family under the same roof. So I come from that type of energy to being the only child in a single family house with my mom, with my dad and my stepmother. It was pretty tough because as a kid, you don't understand why. You get what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? You don't understand the dynamics of grown folks' businesses and how it's done. And all I know is I wasn't around my family anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think I used isolation, probably was really depressed because I didn't have my mother there and I couldn't understand why. So that was abandonment issues that now I see that started very early on.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I had a father there, even though I had a stepmother, she was not my mother. And so that transition wasn't so great.
And it goes to the other side of the question that I asked you. How important do you think the absent parent is, the absent, whichever one is absent, which in this situation was your mom? What do you feel that you missed out on because she wasn't around?
The nurturing. Um, I'm going to say this with all due respect to my stepmother. If, however, she was raised and
Mm-hmm.
whatever she was lacking, she poured into me. So if she was lacking nurturing skills, if she was lacking love and all those things, I was her first guinea pig, because she didn't have any children. But with
Mm-hmm.
my mother was very nurturing. She was very hands on. And I yearned for that over and over and over again to where it became resentment. The fact that I felt like, why were you keeping the very people that I love the most, that love me the most, away from me, as if there was something wrong with her. And of course, my mom was 15 when she had me, so you cannot expect a 15-year-old to know what to do. But one thing she did have, and my grandparents installed in me, was unconditional love and affection and attention. I didn't have, there wasn't a lacking of that before I left. Now, moving forward, I come to a house and I'm my dad's first child as well. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's experimenting. He's 19, 20 years old, doing what he's supposed to do as a man, to be responsible, get his daughter. because he's in a better position. He has a good job. He's married now. He can provide stability. He did exactly what he was supposed to do as a stand-up guy, right?
Mm.
But there were still some lacking things because I didn't have the balance.
Yeah, and you talking about young parents
Yeah.
that were still they're still trying, not just really learn how to tie their shoes, and then you ask them, you throw on the responsibility of being a parent. That's a lot for a young person. Now, did you internalize that and make what? Did you ever say it was your fault that something happened that yeah that you was not with your family because of that's just how kids are. They don't know because we was raised not to be in grown folks business. We wasn't in grown folks business, so that we can start to look at the situation as if it was us. Did you ever internalize that, like, my parents are not together because of me?
I didn't go that far. I think I was too afraid to ask why. And
Hmm.
so I just kind of found a way to accept it, but I was really rejecting it and I became very isolated. You know, I was too afraid to ask why and why. I know every summer I would ask my dad when I'm going home, dad, because every summer he would say, you can you can go to Arkansas, in the summertime when school is out. So the very last day of school, I was so excited because I would tell my friends, I'm going home. I'm going home to see my nanny, my papa, and my mom. I was so excited for that. And every day when it didn't come, when he would say, well, maybe tomorrow, maybe next weekend, that day never came. Eventually, I just received that it was that I was bad or something that I did, the reason as to why, but I was too afraid to have the conversation or to ask why.
Yeah, again, we was raised different. You didn't ask those questions. You just roll with the punches. You just kind of take it for what it was.
Yeah.
Now, how did that show up for you in your school years though? So, like, let's say eighth grade. What was the process? Because you're trying to still process into this dynamic. And did any of those behaviors show up in school? Were you a good student? Were you creative? I mean, you said you was a loner, so school could be very difficult for a loner. What how did that process show up?
Yeah, I was the type of kid, I didn't have a lot of friends. A lot of friends, people like me, whatever, but I wasn't a social person. I had one best friend and she probably had all the friends, but I was a loner. I was pretty shy. I was very isolated. And now looking back, I was a depressed child because I'm lonely from my mother that I hadn't seen. I probably saw my mom and my grandparents maybe once or twice from the
Hmm.
ages of 4 to 18, and we would go
Mm,
down south every summer. And so it was almost like an unspoken elephant in the room that I couldn't go over their house. And when I did, I would scream and holler and fight. So as I became a teenager, there was a lot of uncertainty, trying to find who I am, not really sure where I belong. And
mhm,
so I just isolated myself. I was in my room all the time, but once again, I was able to find my creative side, and that was drawing and painting and designing and doing anything creative to get that out of me that I did not know that that was my way to cope. So I was a great student, did never got in trouble, straight A, B, and C, A, B, C, A, and B student. Loved school because that was another outlet for me that I can
mhm,
excel in, and I can maybe prove and show that I'm a good student. So you allow me to go see my mom.
mhm.
I kept over excelling, thinking that that would be good enough to say, hey, she's good enough. Let her go see and be with her other family. But that never worked. So I can see looking back now how school was very important to me. And making good grades was highly important to me to make sure that I'm a good kid. So you won't have a reason to say why I couldn't go.
For the reward.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
People pleasing. It started with people pleasing. That's when
that
my
that's
people pleasing started.
yeah, and that's where I was just about to say that is the seed for that. That is the seed for that. And you are so you're an amazing student. All you're going through middle school, high school. Now you're in high school. You still this amazing student. What was one of the main challenges that you faced just in terms of figuring out who you were in high school?
I was considered, I look at myself as back then was just weird. I wasn't into the things that everybody else was into. Like, I mean, I made sure that my hair had the latest and greatest, hairstyles, but I really wasn't into everything that everybody else was. Trying to find that part of when you're trying to be a young woman, I didn't fit in. I was a skinny, always been a pretty girl, but
Mhm.
I wasn't athletic. I wasn't popular, even though a lot of people knew me. I didn't have a desire to be with the popular group. So I hung with the nerds. I probably was a misfit. Pretty girl, she's smart, but she's awkward because I didn't know how to be around and show up and be confident. I didn't know how to do that because I didn't want extra attention because I didn't want someone to think that I was going to do something bad, not to be rewarded. Once again, I wanted to make sure that I did everything right so that I would not get in trouble or be looked upon as be the reason as to why I can't go.
Yeah, that's tough to have to navigate as a young person to try to put those pieces together and make sure that you're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. That is a lot of pressure. That is definitely a lot of pressure. Now, in that, um, how was your relationship starting to form with your stepmom while you were transitioning into high school? Were you still distant?
Oh yeah,
Was your
it got
dad?
worse.
It got worse.
Mind you, Maurice, I got pregnant at 16, had my daughter at 17.
Okay, because that was my next question as to did it
So
cause you to?
yeah, so I did not have, my parents were very strict. It was
Mhm,
church and school. That's it.
mhm.
You don't have, whatever you do at school is your part of your social. There wasn't hanging out with friends at the mall that I take you to the mall, we'll go, but there wasn't any besides the people in your neighborhood. But that was even, highly, highly watched. So I didn't have the freedom to just be a kid because I was so concerned with trying to do the right thing. And when I met my girl's dad at McDonald's back in the 90s, McDonald's was the
Was the
hangout
spot
spot.
right?
And I think what caught me, he paid so much attention to me that made me feel weird, but I didn't know what to do with that. I
Hmm.
didn't know and my best friend at the time, she had already been active. I wasn't active. When I say active, you know what that means. So I
Uh-huh.
didn't know none of
Uh-huh.
that.
Uh-huh.
And I was really fearful of him. I wasn't comfortable being around having that type of interaction with a male that actually liked me in that space because now it wasn't controlled. He just graduated from high school. I'm in 10th grade. I'm a sophomore. He just graduated high school. He's a grown man,
Right.
technically,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I didn't know what to do with that. And I found it, this is the thing I would say to parents. Don't be so strict on your children where they cannot breathe. Allow them to have some type of social interactions while they're under your roof,
Hmm.
because what you don't know is that the very thing that you're telling me they can't do, they shouldn't do, that's the natural. Girls should like boys and boys should like girls. That should be a natural thing. But when you deny them or try to force them to not do that, you restrict them. And then guess what they do? They want to go see why.
They
Why am I
rebel.
not supposed to have these feelings? I mean, is something wrong with me that I'm not
Hmm.
supposed to like boys? I'm not
Hmm.
supposed to like him. Well, what is this? And so there wasn't a conversation had to say, this is natural. You're supposed to. This is what
Right.
girls supposed to like boys. It was almost like a don't like boys, but I was so confused, very confused. So a year went by from me to talking to him only on the phone because even at 16, I couldn't have boys call me.
Right.
So we had to sneak. Best friend had to call it a three-way. So you got to think about that. He was already, everybody was. I'm the late one out the group. I couldn't even talk to boys, let alone kiss a boy, let alone to go to third base with a boy. That just wasn't happening.
Right.
So
So, so for the young people that's listening, when she said three-way,
Oh,
let
yeah.
me explain to y'all what that is. Okay, so you had a house phone. For most of y'all don't understand that because y'all rock with cell phones all the time. And you know when you hit the button on your cell phone and it says merge and all y'all are on the cell phone talking at the same time. Well, three-way was you had to put the other person on hold, it get the dial tone, dial the other number, that phone ring, then you bring them in. All this was all manual. Now it had a button that says merge. And so, this is old school. We Gen X. So
That part.
that was the way that you how she got around talking to her. She called her friend, and then three-way him in, and boom, there you have it.
Yep.
So, we moved different when we were younger. That's why we didn't get caught. That's why we know how to catch y'all when y'all moving because anyway, I digressed. I'm sorry about that. Just the 90s nostalgic moment,
Top tier. Very demure.
very, very demure. Yes. so so do you think part of your being reclusive pushed you into opening yourself up to that? Now, and here's another question. Did you see some qualities in him that you saw in your dad?
Yes. Um, yes and no.
Okay.
He was from the hood. I'm from the middle class neighborhood. I don't know what, that's something that I don't have any with that, right? There was some type of, attraction because he's the opposite of what I've been around. Like I come from a two-parent household. We come from a middle-class neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's married. The kids, da 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 da. But he was raised in the hood with his grandparents. The same dynamic that I was, but it was in the hood. Like,
Mhm.
ooh, you're not supposed to go over there. So there was a sense of wanting that the dangers of the fact that I'm not supposed to be here. I shouldn't be talking to him. But just because he lived in the hood does not mean that he was hood. So he was a
Right.
smart kid that was well established, but his circumstances, he lived in where his grandparents bought their home, which is in the hood. So it didn't, we related because of that part. He reminded me of how I was raised in the
Mhm.
beginning with my grandparents and that family dynamic with the uncles and aunties and always somebody at the house. I think I veered more towards that than him itself, than him as a person.
Uh-huh.
But that was just as amazing to me. That reminded me of home. Let me just say that. So I loved going over
It
there.
filled a void. It
Yes,
filled a void that you were desperately seeking to
yes,
be in that environment. So when
yes,
you got in that environment, it was easy for you to just be like, "Yo, this reminds me of what
yes,
I'm missing out on back at the crib."
yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes.
And so you said you got pregnant at 16. How did life change for you at 16? Because you're saying your parents being in established in the church, very religious and restrictive. So did they treat you differently when you got pregnant? Are you the black sheep, the scarlet letter? You know, can't go to church because you can't step up in there pregnant because it's gonna look bad for the whole family kind of thing.
Yes, I got pregnant on my first attempt. It was our first time trying. So but let me school the young people. And I told my daughters this. I got pregnant off of pre-ejaculation. And I'm going to
Mhm.
keep this on 100 because people say you can't get pregnant the first time. It was my very first time attempting. When I say attempting, we never went through with it because it was hurting so bad.
Uh-huh.
But and I want to get technical. Can I get technical a little
Yeah,
bit?
go ahead. Yeah, hey, yeah.
Okay. He tore enough
Uh-huh.
to whereas the pre-ejaculation, that got me pregnant. When I went to the doctor 4 months later, the doctor had to re,
Do the procedure to open you up.
because they knew that I was pregnant. The sonogram says that I'm pregnant. But when they gave me the exam, they was like, well, wait a minute. We see the baby is on, she's pregnant. But
the
This is
how
not
to,
real.
then it didn't make
It's not
sense.
open. It's not, it
Yeah.
hasn't been, it's been tampered, but we got to do it. We have to get that in order to do an examination on it. And I would tell people, this is how you know God had his hands on me, because even when I tried to do what everybody else was doing, I got not punished, but I mean, everybody,
Your
how the first time?
consequences showed up faster than everybody else's
That was
because
my first time attempting.
now
Because my friends told me it was going to be flowers and butterflies and this and that, and I'm like, it was blood everywhere. I was hurting, like they lied to me. I was like, they lied to me.
now can you imagine you now that you're older and you looking back and you walked up in the doctor's office and you ain't really gone through fully with the process and the doctor saying, there's only been one other time that this happened in history.
My stepmother was so confused. She was like, "What do you mean?" The doctor was like, "We know that she's pregnant. We know that something had to happen because there's a baby inside of her. But looking at what's here that's presented, it's sealed back up, which means it wasn't tore all the way." And she was like, "What?" And I'm sitting here like, I don't know how this stuff really works. So I didn't know that you can get pregnant on the first attempt. I didn't know that I was supposed to tell him to, like, I was so lost because we never had a conversation about sex and education and how you get pregnant. Even in school, that was kind of taboo at my house.
Uh-huh.
So that conversations of that, because it was so strict with church, all I know is that I was going to go to hell, and I was pleading and asking Jesus to forgive me so I don't burn in hell. And so the church, they didn't have me go before the church and ask for forgiveness, because I've seen that happen with some adults. They had to go to front of the church and ask God to forgive and be condemned. But it was definitely this is little Cookie. She's so innocent and did everything right, and she didn't got pregnant, because I thought that the only way you can get pregnant was you being fast.
Right.
And I
Right.
wasn't fast. But I liked this boy, and I tried something, and boom, I got pregnant. I didn't get a chance to be fast with him. Hey, I didn't get a chance to even. No, it happened the very first attempt. So I told my daughters, like, do not think that you cannot get pregnant on the very first time and you was a virgin. You can very much get pregnant as a virgin on your very first attempt and your very first time. If that man succeeds, it can happen because you're here. So
that is, I mean, as a parent, I'm just going back to that time frame and all that. I'm thinking, oh, she hasn't had sex, but she pregnant. Oh yeah, we putting oil and all kind of stuff.
it didn't make sense. And now here I am feeling, like Scarlett, feeling the shame. And now I'm more obligated to make this man my husband or to be with him because I've given this man my body.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've known that this is my person. And I'm trying to repeat what my dad also did. My dad married my stepmom at 18. So I'm saying, well, maybe this is the person, because he had me, so he couldn't be too rough on me, because you had me, you got my mom pregnant at 15.
Right.
But my stepmother was I think it was far more embarrassing to her. And that made things even worse, because my sister is 3 years old. Now here I am pregnant with the baby. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna take care of her and another child? That was a lot.
So so did you stay in school?
Yes. Oh, of course. I super succeeded. School was my outlet. So I already was an A&B student. So once I got pregnant, I was able to graduate early, take classes, had more than enough credits. I graduated early from my class. I had my counselor, what is it called? What's the term? I emancipated myself, did the paperwork to emancipate myself from my parents so I can graduate early because I had a child, to enroll in college, and 6 months before everybody else graduated. I did that.
Wow.
I forged their names, but I did the process of
It
the
worked.
paperwork.
It worked.
Because I had to be an adult. This is what I'm thinking. I had to make up the mistake I've made. I got to write it.
Uh-huh.
I have to do right by it. And so I was able to emancipate myself from them, enroll myself in college, enroll myself in college so that I can graduate early in January. I'm gone. I'm already starting life with him.
Did that plan work out like you had it in your head?
No, but it worked out to the point where I moved once I graduated. So
Hmm.
once I graduated in December, my parents didn't see me. I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where he had set up a house and apartment and was working and stuff. So he moved me and my daughter back down south, and that was
Okay.
closer than Milwaukee is. So Memphis to Arkansas ain't but an hour and a half. So that I'm a little bit closer to my family because that was the goal, to get back to my people.
Yeah.
So we tried it, but it just didn't work.
What was one of the things that you learned in that space though? Like, you did all that and you moved in and you're trying to make your puzzle match the puzzle of your dad. And what was some of the hurdles that you faced in making that decision? And then, yeah, and then the other question is, how did your parents respond to you deciding that you were going to leave?
Well, moving out of my father's house into a man house. Now, mind you, we hadn't had sex since I got pregnant. So this is a year later, year and a half, year and some months later before he was able to touch me because he wasn't in the same city anymore, right?
Mhm.
So here I am getting off the bus stop with a baby on the hip. I'm trying to be grown now. I'm trying to do the right thing. I got pregnant again. We immediately had a baby. I got pregnant. I got there in February. By March, I was pregnant with my second daughter. So here I am now, a year and a half later. I'm pregnant, 19, with two babies. Well, I'm pregnant with one, so I'm 18. 19, I had my second daughter. So I'm 19 years old with two babies, less than 2 years apart. They're a year and a half apart.
Wow. What would you tell a young person right now who is in a similar situation to that and think that the world is about to end? What would you share with them?
I want to speak to the young girls,
Hmm.
young ladies. Life is far more bigger than your relationship. The relationship that you have with yourself and your creator outweighs any relationship with a boy at 19 and 18 and 17. Matter of fact, the boy that you think you are in love with now, 9 times out of 10 would not be the person that you even like 2, 3 years later on. So I would plead to them to say, take a moment, take a moment, think about what it is the life that you would want to live for you. Not what your parents want you to do, not what grandma wants you to do, not what your friends, not what social media says. Like, step away from all of that and find out what is that you love. Where do you see yourself in the future? How do you see yourself in the future? And focus on that. Because if I could go back, which I can't, but I would have never put myself in a position where financially it's going to be that much harder on me in order to try and to attempt to explore any of my dreams and my passions. That
Hmm.
right there set me up to, even at 50, even at 49, I'm just now recovering, whereas I'm putting the time and energy and effort in myself. Do you know how much time has been wasted? And I say wasted because I put family and put everybody else before myself. And I consistently kept doing it because I felt guilty by putting me first. And in order
Mm.
for you to show up as your best self, you must put you first. They cannot get a healthy mother. They won't have a healthy father. They will not have anything healthy mentally if you are not there mentally for yourself first.
Yes.
Putting you first is not a bad thing. It's a necessity. It's a priority. Make sure you are well with your mental, your physical, your spiritual, and your emotional self. Do that first. Put you first. And it's going to mean that people are going to be upset with you, right? Because you're being selfish. And that's a good thing, to be selfish when it's just you. And selfish does not mean that I don't think about anyone else. Selfish says, I'm thinking of me first
Yeah.
before I can tend to you.
Yeah. That's some amazing information. Hopefully, somebody hears that's in that situation, and um, really take that to heart and start to put the pieces in place to move in that direction. Because as easy as it sounds, you know that's a very difficult transition and process. So, you know, you, you did it, but it took some time for you to kind of figure out that path and chart that path. So now you're 19. You are a mother of two in a
Yes.
struggling relationship, and um, was it was it a was it an abusive relationship mentally? Not, I mean, was it just an overall abusive relationship? No, not, or it
No,
just
we fought and argued like any regular
any other couple?
and a couple of, I'm 19, he's 21. The go figure.
Yeah,
Just the everyday pressures of him trying to work and provide for me and my daughter. And I never worked and I had to figure out how to bring some in. Like our hearts were in the right space. Our hearts were in the right space. He loved me and I loved that man dirty draws, but we didn't have the skills. We didn't have the know-how, the means.
right.
We only had grandparents and not understanding that grandparents had a sense, uh, it was different. And so we were trying to take on everybody else's, my parent, I'm taking on everybody else's idea of what this thing looks like from the
Hmm.
outside in, because you're not inside it. You only can see a perspective, how
Right.
they do, but you didn't know behind the scenes how mom and dad, grandpa and grandpa, how they actually, maneuvered and put everybody and put this family thing, the dynamics of that we wasn't preview to.
Right.
So I think that in itself played a part. And then guess what? A year and a half later, he goes incarcerated for prison for life. So I went from being with the love of my life. We have these children. We're struggling. We're going back and forth. We break up. I go home to Jonesboro. Then we get back together. We did all that until there was no longer. He went to back to Milwaukee to check on his grandmother, and his uncle was on drugs.
Hmm.
And his uncle came to the house all beat up, face was, busted up. And he was like, "What's going on?" He said, "It's a gang at that time that was coming into Milwaukee called BOS. And they were just terrorizing the neighborhood. And by him being a part of the neighborhood, he thought that he can go and talk and see who these young cats are, to give them a little, hey, y'all, look, I understand y'all doing this, but, terrorizing the older people, doing, try to come to kind
Move
of peace
different.
treaty."
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
And so he did go over there with a weapon, with his gun, just for protection, being in the neighborhood, but he didn't have a bullet in the chamber. And they was like told it wasn't us. It was another person that wasn't
Hmm.
from the neighborhood, that was
Hmm.
the leader of the gang. And when someone told the leader of the gang that he was over there asking questions and want to pay off his uncle's debt, whatever the debt is, let me pay it off so we can clean, let bygones be bygones.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, that he approached him and he said, "Hey, what don't walk up on me like that. I don't know, you don't know me, but I'm here to try to clean his debt up so that y'all won't be jumping on him." And one thing led to another. He shot, uh, my kid's father shot him. There wasn't a bullet in the chamber, so when he did shoot, it ricocheted, and the young man ended up dying. And my girl's dad was charged with first-degree murder. Well, went to court. All 12 white jurors found him not guilty. They said they would have done the same thing, because at that time, the state of Wisconsin did not have a gun law. If you got
Hmm.
caught with it, even if you were defending yourself, you were going to jail. All 12 white jurors found him not guilty. We had to be escorted in and out of courtrooms. His
Wow.
grandmother's house got shut up because this is the BOS. This is the gang from out of Chicago that was infiltrating Milwaukee.
Hmm.
And all 12 white jurors found him not guilty. The judge overruled the jurors, sent him,
Wow.
instead of giving him, the jurors came back, they wanted to give him second-degree reckless, which didn't serve but a time of 2 years, and then be put on probation. The judge said no, sentenced him to life. Then he put it down to 40 years. Now, my kid's father has never been in any type of trouble. He got some car violations, traffic tickets, but never been in any kind of trouble,
Uh-huh.
right? And so we could not believe that, and that's when my life went and changed for the worse. I walked in knowing that we thinking and knowing that he's coming home, 2 years max. We go in there and he's never coming back for at least for life, 40 years.
40.
I have a 2-year-old and I have a 1-year-old, both of my babies on my hip. What do you mean? When the judge overruled the jurors, that's when I got locked up. I was locked up mentally, physically, financially, everything you can think of. My life stopped.
Mm.
And that's when survival mode stepped in.
You know, I was reading one of your posts on Instagram, and it says, "I raised my kids to survive, but now I'm teaching them how to live." I thought that was very, very deep in just the meaning of that, and just to see the picture that how it looked like everybody's thriving and everybody's moving in a direction. So the bottom drops out of your life at 19. You're a mom of two. You go into survival mode. What does survival mode look like?
Here's how you live. Hope is gone. Who wants a woman, a girl that's 19 with 2 kids? Who's going to want me? My life
Mhm.
is over with. I have no meaning.
Mm.
Now I have people saying you gotta, you gotta be with men that got money, which is the dope dealers, right? That's the only 19. I'm 19. The only men in my age group that got money are the ones that's in the streets.
Right.
There is no other way to survive. I have 2 children they're not in school, can't afford daycare. Matter of fact, and I had a community. My grandparents, my mother came back in and stepped up, but I couldn't tell you where I was. I hated God. I was upset with God because why would you do this to me? What did I do to deserve to have this type of like what did I do so wrong? Why was I so are you punishing me because I had kids out of wedlock?
Hmm.
I was angry at God. Oh, I was angry. I was angry at his uncle because I'm like, you're the reason why he's locked up. Him trying to save you, and now he has a family and he can't even save us. I was so codependent on him that I didn't see the bigger picture. I couldn't see past this disparity. I couldn't see past what am I going to do? How am I going to survive?
Mm.
Now I'm having to take on personalities and try to be this tough,
Right.
man, and all this. That's not me. That's not how I move. But I had to let go of the nurturing, the soft, kind, sweet, little innocent little girl that still was there, that was loving and kind, to become this beast. Because now I got to protect myself and my 2 kids.
And
Taking no prisoners. I
yeah,
took no prisoners. No
I
love.
can imagine, you know, once you reach that breaking point and you're at that space, yeah,
There was
it
no love. I was a pretty girl, but I was a beast. When I tell you I was a beast, it was no love. No love given and no love shown.
so what did the next couple of years look like in your late 20s? Now your children are older. Now you out where did you go to the streets and as a OG, like, or what was the movement after that?
I was around the ones that was getting the money.
Okay.
I might not wasn't involved in that way, but if I know Jim and you don't know Jim, but I know Jim getting the money, then I'm gonna introduce you to Jim and I'm gonna get my cut because I know that Jim trusts me and you trust me, but y'all don't trust each other because you don't know each other. So I'm around the G's, I'm around the OGs that's getting the money because I need it.
So you became a broker.
There you go. I like that term. I like that term.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
I did. I
you
did.
you
And
was
in a way
brokering
where
deals.
it wasn't it wasn't broadcasted because when you get men that got money like that, they're gonna have beautiful women around. And they're gonna
Mhm.
take care of I'm gonna look out for you because of the mere fact you looking out for me. And that's, not as far as hands on, but introduction. What young man at the time that's making money did not want to have a beautiful woman around? Just because I had
Right.
two kids, it didn't stop anything. And I didn't go away as far as not take care of myself, right?
Right.
But there was no love. It was understood. Like, this is how I got to eat. I got two kids. There wasn't a job that I could make that was going to take care of me and my responsibilities. It
Right.
wasn't enough money. The state
Right.
couldn't give me enough money to survive. There was no money in that. I had to figure it out.
Now you this OG mom, but how was your relationship with your girls? Were you able
Survivor.
to
There
have a
wasn't the hugs and kisses.
oh
That
so
wasn't there. It wasn't. I was survival mama. They didn't get to see. I had to cut that off because there
oh
was no way that I could have survived if I would have stayed in that. This is the sad thing about it, Maurice, but it's the truth. If I would have stayed as Angela and didn't become Cookie, which is my grandfather gave me that name, I probably would have been institutionalized. I would have lost it because
mhm,
that was the stress factor of all of that was too much for me. I literally had to go in a freeze. I went into a freeze zone, freeze moment, my life froze at that time. And I
mhm.
had to become a character in order to survive.
So when you cut so there was no way and it's hard to do this and especially when you go into survival mode to be nurturing and show some signs of weakness and softness towards your kids and then come out into these streets and be an OG like
I made sure my grandparents was around. My mom, I made sure I had a community of people that can give them that because
okay
I had to cut it off. And so even they didn't get it from me, they got it from my mom, they got it from my
okay
grandparents. I still was smart enough to have a community around me that helped me, right? So that they
yeah
would be as affected because at that time I didn't know the damage that I was doing. I
right
couldn't think about tomorrow. I had to think about today. And that's all we had. How am I going to make sure that we got food to eat and got a nice place to stay? I, tomorrow, next week, boy, please. I can't think about the future.
so you couldn't see past your eyelashes.
No, 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 no.
Yeah,
No, I
so
couldn't
so
see past
when
it.
you move when so now you have this family dynamic where your daughters are being nurtured, but they're missing. So you kind of repeated a cycle subconsciously, but it wasn't like that was just a pattern of something that you had already walked out of. So it was familiar to you, even though you probably didn't even recognize it in that moment.
Then recognize it. You can't because you're in it.
Yeah,
You don't know that you're bleeding. You're so
right.
used to tasting the blood that you don't know that that's blood. You're so used to it. You didn't even recognize the wounds and the sores that you had. You didn't recognize it because you're so used to it hurting and pain that you nulled yourself from it. Luckily, I didn't turn to drugs, and luckily, I didn't turn to alcohol and do anything like that. But my mental state was messed up. There wasn't
And how
any
long did you
like
stay
it
in that
was.
space? Like in your late 20s, now you transition into your 30s. How long did you ride out as this gangster mom? And what
Probably,
was your breaking point?
I met my
At,
son's dad. He was an older guy. So then now I'm looking for somebody that can take care of me and my girls. And I met my son's father, who was 10 years older than me. So I was 25, he was 35. He just got out the military. I'm looking for help. I'm looking for somebody that will, marriage and family and want to support me. And so I didn't like him, but I felt like he was going to be the one that's going to save me from this
uh-huh,
space, right?
right.
And I got pregnant and I was like, oh God, I'm at this place again. Like, I can't, this ain't, no, this not what, and we didn't, it was so, I'm telling you, the space that I was in, there is no way had I been in my right mind that I even would have considered just being like, I was so out the loop, so out of the will of God. And when I say that, when you look back, you're just saying like, what was I thinking? I wasn't. Just spiraling. I was spiraling out of control.
Hmm.
That I was making bad choices with the people that I was around because I'm in that arena. I'm
Right.
around hustlers. I'm around people that's getting money. So that's going to be where I'm going to choose to have a partner with, even though he wasn't in it, he was in it without being in it, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so, yeah, there was no way. There was no way. And so now I'm pregnant I go back home to my parents, to my father's house, and hey, I'm pregnant. Now you got three kids. You got two kids and you got the third one on the way.
How was that received?
It wasn't,
Because not only did you take kids, not only did you take two kids and pregnant with one back, you picked up all the luggage of shame and disappointment and failure and all the other luggage. And you, when you walked back, when you went back, you picked all that stuff back up. How did they receive you?
it wasn't received well at all, especially with my stepmom. My dad was going to always be there, but my stepmom was like, "I'm not going to deal with this." And it was the fact I just needed a space to breathe, Maurice.
Mm-hmm.
I just needed some time where I can have my children safe, where I can just sit still long enough just to breathe. That's
Mm-hmm.
all it was a break. It was a break in my mentality that I just needed a safe space to land. I wasn't going to be here long, but I needed a safe space to land so that I can try to get some type of understanding of what the hell am I doing with my life. And so
And
I was
what
only
point
there
did
for
that?
probably maybe 4 months, 5 months.
Okay.
Before I was able to have my son, I moved back down south because I was like, I have a break. Let me go back to where I know I have help with, grandparents, a
Mm-hmm.
community. I know that I can always go back to my grandmother's house, my grandparents' house. They are always welcome me in. Mind you, I wasn't around them for a very long time, so they wanted me there. It was me. I'm choosing to have my own space, my own place. They wanted me to stay. They never
Mm-hmm.
wanted me to leave, but I didn't want to be dependent on them. So yeah, I went back home before I had my son, and my dad had a conversation with me. He said, "You have three children now. It's time for you to get somewhere and get settled." He said, "Now you gonna stay in Arkansas or you gonna come here? But whatever you do, it's time to get yourself settled with a job, with a career, do something because now you have three. Those girls' kids are getting older now. You're gonna have to have some type of foundation."
Mm-hmm.
And I made that decision. So I stayed in Arkansas up until my daughters was almost 16, 17 years old. So I didn't move out of Arkansas until '08.
Okay. Okay. And when did you have your real life come to Jesus encounter? Like outside of the church, you raised in the church, you know church stuff. When did he become real to you?